Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me, Melzie K on Resonance and the FCB Collective. I'm excited to share tonight's show with you. It's going to be called Life in the Quantum, Traveling Through the Veil. And tonight we're going to be talking about various different things. We're going to be talking about astral travel and lucid dreaming, remote viewing, and near-death experiences, and how this is all tied together with our life in the quantum. Doug, if you could pull up our first video, please. Thank you.
You're actually out of the body when you're dreaming at night. So when you sleep for 7 or 8 hours, you're going to spend 3 hours. This is medical studies now. This is hard neuroscience now. We've known this since the 1950s when we discovered the 4 brainwaves. You spend 3 hours out of the body into the 5th dimension. The question is, where do you go? Most people, because they don't know what they're doing, or because they're arguing with their wife, or they're worrying about problems, or because they had too many drugs, they go to the lower astral plane. That's a very bad neighborhood.
Like hell.
Well, except you can get out of it. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's like purgatory. Okay.
Purgatory. Okay.
Whereas if you use the techniques, protection techniques and more positive things, you can leave through the crown chakra, not through the 3rd chakra, which will take you to the lower astral. If you go to the crown chakra, which is where you want to go, now you go to the upper astral plane or the causal, mental, etheric, or even soul plane. Those are all positive dimensions. Okay. The only 2 negative dimensions are the lower astral plane and this one. We have a lot of problems here, but the other dimensions are all positive, and each dimension has a sound and certain characteristics that are relevant to it. For example, if you're out of the body and you hear the roar of the sea, you're on the astral plane. If you hear the tinkling of bells like in a New Age bookstore, now you're on the causal plane where the Akashic records are stored. If you hear the sound of running water, you're on the mental plane. And if you hear the buzzing of bees, you're on the etheric plane. Or if you hear the sound of a flute, you're on the soul plane.
Thank you, Doug. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. What is the Akashic Records? What does it mean to travel to the astral plane? What does it mean to be in the ether and in this dream state? A lot of things that we can learn in our dreaming time, and where do we go? The first person was talking about that a lot of us go when we dream into a lower level, and that not many of us reach higher levels, and that the way that you reach a higher level is a lot of times through a meditative state. A lot of us are distracted with worry or fear or different things that we can't release ourselves at night. So it's kind of impossible for us to ever hit those higher places. So the next one we're going to be looking at is that dream state, and are we traveling through the ether? Oh, the one last thing that I wanted to talk about with what they talked about there was that each dimension has different frequencies, right? Or different tones, different sounds that you could hear. And so I thought that was very interesting, tuning into, like, maybe if you're in a higher dimension, you might hear a flute, or you might hear angelic voices, or you might hear harps or something. So maybe we'll hear instruments we never knew that there was a name for. Okay, let's go and pull out the second one. We don't have any sound, Doug. Just give us a second. We're just getting a little bit of technical difficulty with our sound, so I'm excited about this one too. I think that this is going to be amazing. It's kind of like a journey I've planned, and um, we're all affected by this from our life to our death, and a lot of us we desire to reach over the veil, and what does it mean, and how do we access these places, even though we're interconnected with it. So I think that our experience of now in this 3D is important for us to look at that now experience. What are we learning from the joy of this now that we're in gratitude, right? Is it that we get to spend time with our kids? Is it that we get to um, maybe cook something? Is it we get to go for a walk? Or is it we get to hear music or we get to eat? Those are all 3D experiences. And so what we're doing now has value. So not all of our focus should be on that, although death and life are a part of us all. Okay, let's try it again.
When you get into dreams, your mind is going into the ether, the unlimited, vast information that is all around us. So as you go into the dream state, you're traveling through the ether and you're traveling through all the energy. That's why a lot of people get information from dreams or they see something in advance in their dream state. You're traveling into the ether, connecting to all the unlimited information and tapping in. Now, there are all different types of frequencies and realms and all different things around us at all times. And when you're getting into your dream state, that's what you're tapping into. You have so much. You're not just this physical form. You have so much more to you than you even realize. Your brain is more powerful than anything you could possibly even fathom. It's operating so quickly. This is why all these they're trying to put chips and neural links and all kinds of things into people's brains because the brain is connected to the ether, connected to the heart. It's all one big crystal of water, which when it gets into the dream state, it's very powerful. That's why a lot of the ancient civilizations used to be very connected to the dream states. They were very into taking certain substances, herbs, and remedies to alter their dream state to see different frequencies and different vibrations.
Yeah, what I thought was most profound there about what he was saying is that our brain, because the pineal gland is like a crystal, and we're sitting in like this fluid and crystal base, and so we talked last week about water, and here's our brain that is sitting in water and in crystal, and how it can actually interact then interdimensionally just through that field of that plasmic field. So let's pull up the next one we could, Doug. Thank you.
Dimension, you can teleport, you can fly, you can heal things. Your thought creates the reality, but there are limitations. You just can't destroy the whole dimension. There are astral police, by the way. The way you meet a time traveler is in the fifth dimension. Oh, they're real. We know they exist. Every time you can think of a potential future, you're actually creating a parallel universe. Your astral body, your spiritual body, it looks like a ghost. Let's say you're having a problem with someone. Go to the astral plane. You create what's called a sanctuary, like a conference room in the fifth dimension. You now summon the soul of the person you're having problems with. They have to show up. You can now work out your differences. You can do a negotiation with them. They won't, on the earth plane, won't know what's going on because they're asleep now.
Yeah, we can do a lot of things when we're sleeping. It's kind of fun when you can control it a little, like you can fly, or you can say, I don't like this ending and change it. And I like what he said there about you can resolve problems with other people in that state. I had a friend that worked with me on quantum healing, and going back and creating space with actually myself and holding that space then in time that I had trauma or difficulty, and listening to myself, and then bringing love into that area. So it helped me out a lot, because I was the one that I needed to really hold space for myself and help myself to find that healing. No one else could fulfill that part for me. So there's another technique that that friend taught me as well is I had some difficulty with someone that I loved in my life, and they told me to put that person like a rose in the middle of my mind, in the middle, and put that person in the middle of the rose, and then to put all the things that I had, that I needed to speak into that love area that I was creating for us, that safe area. And then all the gratitude that I had, all the things that I loved about this person, all the things that I held in value. And then when I was ready to let go, to burst that into light. And it really helped me to resolve those issues that I was having, and not to become passive aggressive or to actually do something with it. So let's pull up the next one. I like this next one. It's going to be fun.
You know, I had a Bigfoot dream the other night.
No,
It
what
was a
happened?
weird dream. I was Bigfoot in the dream.
Okay.
And I was with other Bigfoots.
Nice.
But we didn't talk. We communicated telepathically.
Yeah.
But then I was able to travel in and out of this dimension.
To where?
I don't know. It wasn't this dimension.
This is literally ninjas and butterflies in a dream. It's all just meshing together,
Dude, no, but I woke up, I'm like, that is what the Bigfoot species is like.
Weird.
They
Yeah.
can travel in and out of dimensions,
Yeah,
and
I
they
don't know
can
about
telepathically. No, but I was convinced of it when I woke up. Talk to Blurry.
Yeah,
I
well-
bet you
I know.
they believe that.
Well, who knows? I've had dreams that are different too. So maybe he was Bigfoot, but I thought that was kind of fun, and I love those. I love that show. I Bet You, I think it's called, and they do a great job. So, there's something to it though. We've heard that Bigfoot could be interdimensional, so maybe he did step into a plane where he could become into that field and have understanding about being Bigfoot and what that means and how they can talk telepathically. Anyways, let's move on to the next one.
Take a notebook, college rule notebook paper, and draw a line down the middle, and about 4 lines from the top, draw a line across it. And so you're making a T. On the left side of your T, you're going to put P and or the past. The middle line will be called N and or neutral. And then the other side of the T will be F and or future. On the P side, that whole line, that whole column, write in what you don't prefer in your life, what you can't do, what you don't want to do, everything you do not prefer in your personal life, professional life, it doesn't matter. Put them all on that list. Make it humongous if you wish. And when you're unsure about things, go ahead and write that kind of in the middle, buffering the neutral. So in the middle line, you'll say, I'm unsure if the sky's blue, whatever it is. Okay. And then on the future side, on that column, write everything you want to show up in your life. Everything. Just make that the most robust column you can. Make them bodacious. I can't wait to fly a spaceship. I don't care what it is. All right. And what you're going to find, the way the mind works, is that it is, if you're having trouble proactively creating your future, you're going to notice the column in the P and the column of neutral are going to be robust. And if you're only focused on the future and your creative force, that's where you want to put all of the thoughts in your head and or your imaginary system. So if you have doubt, it's going to be, I can't do this because my ex-husband's not going to let me travel with the kids. That would be on the P side, because I want to go live in Barbados. I want to go live in Barbados is on the future. In the past would be, that guy's not going to let my kids go out of the country to live with my new husband. That would be in the past, right? So why would we have a fear of living in Barbados? Because our mind tricks us into sustaining the past. Does that make sense?
Yes, and also the mind thinks it has to know how to do it or how to make it happen. But what you're saying is just be aware of what you want and it'll happen.
I had a class when I was in college that taught us how to manifest. They taught us how to dream. What do they call it? no, I can't remember anyways. Brainstorming. That's what they called it. So we would brainstorm and they said, don't worry about how to get there. Don't worry about it's going to take this much money or, I don't know how to do it or I don't have the technology and whatever it is, just dream it and really dream about how it would be. Dream about like they were saying, I want to fly in the rocket or whatever it is. I don't know. And then to just dream it through and make it like as great as you want. And I think the key to this is the feeling of it. Because when I'm studying all that I'm learning, if we tune ourselves into a certain frequency and tuning ourselves to that desire or where we are at that place, it manifests that way through the law of attraction. Because, like a tuning fork, we will come in tune with that manifestation. And he said in that video that our mind sets up obstacles for it not to happen. I kind of look like I have a crown here. Sorry, guys, it was my little light. But we tried to get it out of there, but I see if I can do it. Anyways, it's not. So, okay, let's pull up the next one. Thank you.
If you realize that there are an infinite number of parallel realities, it means there are an infinite number of parallel versions of Earth that coexist simultaneously right now. So he's basically saying you never actually change the world you're on. You change yourself and you shift yourself incrementally to different versions of Earth that already exist that are more and more and more reflective of the change you make within you. People may still exist on the world you left behind, but you may never interact again because they may actually be on another vibrational level of Earth that exists simultaneously with the one you've shifted to. And when you think of yourself as an indestructible, eternal, infinite being, nothing is ever really lost.
Yeah, you change yourself and you shift yourself, and that's called quantum jumping timelines. But I really think it's more like quantum toning or quantum tuning into a timeline than quantum jumping. When I heard the first time the term quantum jumping, I had to think, what does that mean? But I think the quantum toning makes more sense in my mind. And then let's pull up the next one. We're going to look at someone that I think all of us know as Nikola Tesla and how he used dreaming in the lucid state to bring technology forth.
The famous Serbian inventor called Nikola Tesla developed many dream experiments where his acute hearing and visualization skills allowed him to use complex visualizations where he could connect himself into a lucid state beyond 3D holographic reality of this material world. Was Tesla living on another frequency? When you look into his work, you will realize how advanced it was. And therefore, what has happened to this scientific research that he left behind? It can never be forgotten. Western science has constructed its own walls of academic restriction and can never explain such frequencies. And therefore, any reasoning about the concept of astral travel or scientific remote viewing is dismissed, when actually this realm is operating right alongside this one.
Yeah, so I find that interesting because other great minds too, like how did John Keeley learn about the quantum and um, Walter Russell, Tesla, Edgar Casey used it as well for medical, kind of like an intuitive, like a health intuitive. So, I think that we all have this ability. We just, like let's say some are good at builders and some are really good bakers and some kind of more are, maybe in tune to having this gifting. We're going to pull up the next one is going to be about some kind of scientific study behind it. Not that this is just woo woo, but is this reality what we're talking about?
Off top, let me tell you, it's an assessment of the Gateway process. It's to the commander of the U.S. Army in 1983. Gateway process encompassed a ton of things from remote viewing all the way to psychokinesis, all the way to astral projecting, all the way to figuring out how time and space works. This is how the CIA breaks down our consciousness. They have a left hemisphere for it and a right hemisphere for it. Each of them acts differently, and they have techniques that will activate each side of them at the right time to get your brain to do what they want it to do. Number 14, the consciousness matrix. This quote right here sums it up pretty good. Contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of a brain. Scientists that work for the CIA drew this diagram of our universe and how time and space evolve and work. Here's the gag. See the shaded in areas where it says point of where flow of time? That's the part where when you astral project, that's the part of time that you slip into, right there in those shadows of time and space. Wild. Letter J together. Be intellectually prepared to react to possible encounters with intelligent, non-corporeal energy forms when time-space boundaries are exceeded. And that when you move about time and space, you're going to interact with other galactic beings.
That's a lot, to kind of absorb. I remember the first time I saw that diagram, it's taken me a long time to have some type of understanding about it. Not that I get it completely, but our governments, not just ours, but I'm sure others have done extensive study on this through Project Looking Glass as a form of type of looking into the future. And also I think I'm trying to think of what the other ones are, but they've looked at this extensively. So they've had different names for it, and they have different purposes. Um, remote viewing they use as a form to be able to look into bunkers and know what our supposed enemies are doing. So in fact, I think that um, that with Looking Glass, that Hillary had access to it, and she thought she was going to win. So there are different timelines that are out there. Our consciousness has effect on our future. So I think it's important for us to dream, about what we desire for our future. And for one is to know, oh well, they're giving us predictive programming to think a certain way, and then go, well, we're not going to take it, and we're going to think different, and we're going to dream different. Okay, let's pull up the next one.
How is it that during the dream time, you have a crystal clear, full color dream, and whatever that is in that dream happens the next day or next week or the next month or 10 years later? How does that happen? Think about it. A thing that is experienced by almost every human at some point in their life, that's a sort of a signpost that says, you're not only what you think you are. Everything can be known, past, present, future. Most people overthink it, but also they don't believe they can do it. And that's the beginning of programming yourself for failure. So what we want to do is hit the reset button, reprogram ourselves for success and for being able to do it. And all I'm going to do is help you remember who you really are and give you some techniques that facilitate the sharpening of that ability. Key to understanding the psychological and even physical dynamics of consciousness and non-locality and how it can be manifested. The ability to be a seer of a remote place or a remote time into the future. They're all easily accomplished if you understand the science and the fundamental knowledge of consciousness, its nature. You're not only what you think you are, locked in the frame of your physical form and in this time and place. You're actually connected in consciousness to every point in space and every point in time. And that includes right now, but going back, but going also forward, which is remote viewing into the future. This.
You know, how do they do it? We all do it. When we dream, we're entering into that space. And when we dream, we have different abilities. So, you know, I think that what struck me most profoundly is us setting us up for failure of programming, saying, oh, I can't do that. So you're already doing it. It's just becoming aware of how you're doing it. And we're going to talk about how do we know all things? What is he talking about there? What are the Akashic records? Let's pull up the next video, please.
The Akashic Records is nothing more than a field of information that holds every past, present, and future scenario. Everything. Sometimes we refer to this now as the quantum field. We read reality transurfing. Sometimes they call it alternative spaces. Many different names. But here's the thing about the Akashic Records, that if you knew this, would change the trajectory of your life. It holds all of the information for future scenarios. So I can literally create my reality if I can access that energy or that frequency of that reality. In order to do that, we have to be on the same timeline, the same thought frequency of that reality. So the Akashic Records, here's how to help me. It's like a map. And if I'm on this part of the map and the reality that I want is on this part of the map, how do I get from over here to over here? I have to be on the same frequency, meaning I have to have the same thoughts. I have to have the same emotions as this version. And by doing that, now I am moving from this side to this side. And guess what ends up happening in this three-dimensional space? My reality will start to mirror that, and because I'm lighting up that part of the map. And this is the way the Akashic field works. So I will tell you this. A lot of times we'll go to the Akashic Records. We'll have somebody access it for us because we want to find out things of the past. When you understand how the field works, you can start using the Akashic field to create your future as well. And this is when the game of life becomes fun.
Yeah, this is when the game of life becomes fun. When we realize this, it's not about us going back necessarily. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, right? But what can we do for our future? We get this life here on this 3D world, and we can accomplish anything that we put our mind and our heart field to. And that's the truth. So what are we programming ourselves for? What are we tuning into? What is our frequency that we're giving out? What is it that we want to be? You know, so those are things. I love that T-bar thing that makes us look at things like, I've definitely done this. I can't do this because of this. Putting up those blocks in our lives. And what does it mean to remove them? To dream, to brainstorm that into reality and not worry about the how to, but worry about just imagine how it would feel to fly that plane, you know, that you've desired to fly all your life, or the helicopter. How would it feel to go see the petroglyphs? We can do this. It's amazing. Let's pull up the next one. We're going to be talking about how to do this. And the first step, I think, is getting into a meditative state.
The easiest entrance to the meditative state starts with listening. Gently close your eyes and hear the sounds around you, as if you were listening intently to a symphony. As thoughts come and go, listen to them too, as part of the greater sonic atmosphere. Soon, you will find the outside world and inside world merge into one happening. Your thoughts are happenings, not unlike the external sounds. You are just witnessing it all unfold. Another significant happening is the rhythm of your breath. As you start meditating, let your breath flow naturally, without any force. Just observe each inhalation and exhalation breathing in its own way. You will uncover that, effortlessly, each breath moves deeper. As you lean into this practice, do not preoccupy with the future or judge your progression. Through listening to sounds, sensations, and thoughts, combined with observing the breath's dance, you organically shift into wakeful presence, into meditation. Remain attentive to all phenomena arising. If the mind speeds up and stories replay, gently return attention to sounds, using them to guide you back to the heart space of the present. When ready, return to bodily sensations, breath, and whatever else washes through consciousness. Patiently cultivate repeatedly returning softly to the here and now, for this is the perennial spring we visit to nourish presence.
Yeah, breathing and trying to just release, to let go. I use music to help do that. I talk about it a lot, the binaural beats and the 528 or the 432 frequencies. That helps me to get into that meditative, that alpha, I think it's the alpha state. We talked about this. That is it. Anyways, I'm gonna get it wrong. We'll look at it. We're gonna be talking about it shortly. But just release yourself to get into that meditative state. And some people have this easier, some people don't, but we all can do it. Taking a walk in nature can help us to release. Taking a soak in a bath can help us release. Listening to music can. How do we go inward instead of going outward into this outward world? And when we do that, then when we get that release, then we get into a different state in our mind where then we can tap into the quantum field. Okay, let's pull up the next one, please. Thank you.
What if there were no distinction between the physical and spiritual worlds? What if there were a link within our body that kept us constantly connected to these two realms? Have you ever thought about this? One of the most enigmatic organs in our body, the pineal gland, is the most concrete link between our spiritual and physical bodies. It is concrete proof that there is no clear distinction between the two. Although it is a physical organ, the pineal gland is deeply connected to functions of the spiritual world. The main one is clairvoyance. That's why great thinkers like René Descartes believe that our soul resides in the pineal gland. Therefore, it is also called the third eye, capable of opening our vision to supernatural things. Clairvoyance not only expands our perception, but helps us align with the essence of our existence. Far more than a mystical concept or a supernatural gift, clairvoyance is a tangible and accessible experience for everyone. It is a powerful tool that allows us to navigate the complexities of the contemporary world with greater wisdom, compassion, and understanding. The pineal gland is located at the intersection of two worlds. Physically, it is located between the two hemispheres of the brain, which are responsible for different functions. The left hemisphere is responsible for logical and rational thinking, while the right hemisphere is responsible for intuition and creativity. But it not only balances the cerebral hemispheres, it also carries a deeper meaning. Historically seen as a photoreceptor responsible for regulating our sleep, the pineal gland is often described as a meeting point between the physical and spiritual. The physical world is the world we can see and touch, while the spiritual world is the world of the invisible. The pineal gland is seen as a bridge between these two worlds, allowing us to access a deeper dimension of reality. Clairvoyance, often misunderstood as an ability to predict the future, is in fact an awakening of spiritual vision and intuition that is accessible to everyone. This form of clear vision is not about cinematic premonition, but a heightened sensitivity to the realities that surround us physically and spiritually. By activating the pineal gland, we can begin to perceive the subtle energies around us, gaining a deeper understanding of the interconnections of life and the patterns that remain invisible to the physical eyes. This ability to perceive beyond the tangible opens doors to a broader understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
So there's a lot to the pineal gland. Things like fluoride calcify the pineal gland, and things that can help it are, like apricot, seeds of apricot can help open it and restore it. So can sound frequency and binaural beats. The pineal gland is kind of it has a piezoelectric effect. It's a crystal, and through William Reich's work with orgone energy, we know that when we put pressure on a crystal, kind of like a watch, it creates like a battery effect. And a crystal is like a generator, but it's also interdimensional. So that is how we have an eye that can see into different dimensions through our pineal gland. You know, that knowing that we get sometimes, that's where that comes from. One time I was going into town and I did photography and I was told to bring my camera. I heard a voice in my head say, "Bring your camera." And I thought, I'm not bringing my camera because I have to drive all the way into town. And I heard it 3 times. I kind of went through this argument with myself why I wouldn't do it. And so when I got into town, when I left, it was about 30-minute drive. I drove about 5 minutes away, and this was in Wisconsin, and I saw probably an 8-point buck that was an albino buck just standing there looking at me. And I thought, oh, that's why I needed to get my camera. And I told the person I was with, I said, I heard that I said, I should have listened to myself. I was supposed to bring my camera. And they said, why didn't you listen to yourself? And, so that's that white, albino buck moment to myself. I learned that my intuition was speaking there. My spirit was speaking to myself. Did I see into the future? Maybe, I'm not sure, but I didn't listen. And so now when I hear that voice, I take heed and I listen a little bit closer. Let's pull up the next one. It's going to be about remote viewing.
Remote viewing is the act of viewing any location in any time remotely. Many think that remote viewing is just for the gifted few. And yes, some people are better at it than others because they have a more active third eye or they're more psychically able. But remote viewing can be done by anybody through practice. Now, remote viewing is seeing in the mind's eye, seeing any location you choose in the mind's eye. There's no need to travel there. Please see my video on the difference between remote viewing and astral projection. Remote viewing is a psychic skill, and it's been used in the past by the military to view military installations in other countries. It's also been used by police forces to help find missing persons. A psychic is called in and used to perform remote viewing to find these missing persons. They might not be able to figure out the exact location, they can see the location and try to describe it. And in that way, through a process of elimination, the area can be identified. Now, remote viewing is possible because we live in an energetic illusion. If you look on the atomic level, you'll see that we live in this energetic reality, and this is backed up by quantum physics. Now, time and space are just illusions, because if you imagine for a moment that the reality is kind of like a computer program of sorts, kind of like the Matrix, that's the best way to describe it. A computer program is stored in a very small space. With our reality, it's all energetic code fed into our consciousness. So if we're perceiving space as huge distances, really there is no distance at all. It's all just information that our consciousness is decoding. Our consciousness is decoding unified field, which is fooling our minds into thinking that there's large spaces and fooling our minds into thinking that there's time also. So through intention and visualization, we can view any place or time that we choose just by using the power of our consciousness. So past events can be seen through remote viewing, places in the past, in history, or even in the future and the present. And any place you choose, it doesn't have to be just on Earth. Although traditionally, remote viewing has been seen as being viewing places on Earth.
I think she does a great explanation of it, and she went from how the government uses it to, how we could possibly use it. She also does an explanation of how to that we're going to be seeing shortly. I think that we all do this. We're all little time travelers within our mind, and we can start practicing too, or just becoming more aware of how we're tapping into that with our dreams or how we're tapping into that with our thoughts. And then we're bringing those moments back to life within our life. Some of us may have had past memories about things within, maybe our past or maybe our ancestry, and we have questions about that. Maybe that got you into looking into your genealogy or where that came from. So I think they're interesting, and how can we, like we were talking before, look into the future? Why would we want to look into the future? Um, I think like the government has definitely done that through Project Looking Glass, and I can understand why they would want to maybe look at different timelines. So that's what they're talking about, because the time isn't it's not set in stone. It's something that is fluid because we're creating it. Let's pull up the next one. She's going to talk about how to remote view.
So let's get you remote viewing. Step 1. Start meditating. So meditate for about 15 or 20 minutes so that your brain waves lower into the alpha, or even better, the theta state. This is where the conscious mind steps aside, allowing the subconscious mind to take the wheel, the Bridgeton soul, if you will. So step 2, you need to set the intention of the place you want to view. So this can be done in a number of ways. You can choose a location on a map. You can choose a location that you know, or a location that you don't know. You could choose a country, or you could choose some place that's not even on Earth. You set the intention of going to that place. Or you can choose a person. You can set the intention of viewing where a certain person is. Although I would advise that this is done in love and light, and there's no spying on people being done. So step 3, we need to use visualization. We're using the mind's eye. So you need to focus on the place that you've chosen. Think about that place, and then start to let the images form in your mind's eye. 4. Now that the images are starting to form in your mind's eye, take your time. Concentrate. Focus on your surroundings and try to remember. Spend some time exploring and looking around. Remember some landmarks, things that will stick out to you. While you're exploring, you can rise up higher and get a bird's eye view of the place, or you can go in and explore buildings and things like that. It doesn't have to just be a static scene. It can be explored using your consciousness. Because through a process of elimination, you can try and identify the area that you're in. This is if you've chosen to view an area that you just know the name of the place, but you don't know where it is. Step 5. After about 10 or 15 minutes, however long you like, you can simply awaken. You just open your eyes. Your consciousness returns to normal. Step 6. Write your experiences down. While you've been in the meditative state and your brain waves have been lower, it can be harder to remember what you've seen as you come out and your brain waves increase. Therefore, by writing it down, you can try and validate what you saw later on without forgetting anything.
Yeah, so she has some great steps in there. I think that if anybody's interested, they could go and review that and take a look at how to do it. But I think that basically it's getting yourself into a meditative state and using visualization to go there. Okay, let's pull up the next one. I think we're kind of got quite a few more to get through.
You are not just made up of stardust. You are a walking nuclear explosion. You are a star embodied. The reason why we feel like we're separate, like we're this little tiny human with no power, is because we've been stepped down through multiple dimensions into physicality. But just like water can become frozen and the molecules so tight, it feels like it is separate from the other ice cubes.
Mhm. She had a lot there that she was talking about. So why are we a nuclear explosion? Because we have plasma within our body, and plasma is created at a very high energy level. So we're constantly having these little nuclear explosions within us. And if we look at Nassim Harameyn's work, that looks at the theory of everything. So, everything goes inward to infinity, and everything goes outward to to that expansiveness, right? And so when we realize that, we came down energetically in higher dimensions, like we talked about earlier, that maybe the sound of a flute or sound of a harp is a higher octave in a dimension than maybe a lower dimension that is at a density. So we are at a very dense state in the 3D matter, but we are still resonating. We're still like a song within ourselves. Okay, let's pull up the next one.
But there are thousands of people out there who have been medically described as dead, but have come back, carrying with them tons of incredible stories. We call these near-death experiences, because again, we believe if it was actual death, they wouldn't be alive to tell the story. But is that true? We might just never know. There's a wealth of information out there with regards to near-death experiences. People who have been medically described as dead for hours, and some days, come back to life with stories of out-of-body experiences, memories of their time in the afterlife, down to some incredible specifics about this side of life that they just couldn't have made up. One thing many people who have near-death experiences agree upon is the fact that the phrase, "life flashes before your eyes," is very true. Just before the heart flatlines, we're often presented with a view of our entire life. However, it's not like we think it is. It's not the big moments in life that flash before our eyes. It's not the wedding, the graduation, the first time you heard the cry of your child. It's just random stuff. It's riding your bike as a kid, sitting at your desk and randomly checking your email, staring at a white cat while climbing a flight of stairs. It's the things that we don't give any thought to, the moments we don't usually remember in life, that are brought before us in the face of death. If you thought staring at a white cat while climbing a flight of stairs was oddly specific, well, it's because it is. A young man who went through a near-death experience saw this moment as one of life's flashes. However, he could not remember ever being on that staircase or seeing a white cat. So after he was resuscitated, he was able to draw the layout of the staircase, the apartment it led to, and describe the cat to his mother. And she told him that they had once lived in that exact building, with the same staircase and apartment layout. And they had lived there with someone who owned a white cat. Not such a crazy story, until you realize that he and his mother moved out of that apartment when he was just 14 months old. This begs the question, are all of our memories still in there, even the ones we've forgotten? When we die, do we get to see everything that we thought we forgot during our time on this side of life? Is what is gone only temporary? One of the reasons death is scary to a lot of people is that it seems very lonely. You came into this world alone, but do we leave alone? Many people who have had near-death experiences explain that they saw a dead relative there to either escort them to the afterlife or tell them it wasn't their time yet. But whichever one it was, death was definitely not as lonely as we might think. Whether this was simply a figment of their imagination trying to reassure them and make them comfortable in their last few moments, or it was really the spirit or soul of their dead relatives, is something we'll never be able to say for sure. However, what we do know is that death for most people is not lonely, or at least does not feel that way.
Isn't that wonderful to realize that, my dad, when he passed over, we're going to be looking at Daniel Brinkley, and I read his book, and it really helped me a lot. We're going to talk a little bit afterwards about Daniel, and we can just pull him up quickly. But Daniel was struck by lightning, and I think he was killed 4 times. And one of the things that he doesn't talk about is in this, but I know because I kind of studied about it long ago, he got these visions for healing rooms and healing beds, and they involved using water, I think, in somatics. So I'd love to do an interview sometime with Daniel, and I think he's friends with Juan. So if Daniel, if you're listening, let's do an interview sometime.
Well, I've been clinically dead 3 times, but I've had 4 experiences, what you would call near-death experiences.
And what did you learn
through these near-death experiences. That to even conceive that you're going to die is an insane thought. No one dies. It will never happen. And after being a hospice volunteer for more than 45 years and being with more than 2,000 people going from this world to the next, I can tell you conclusively that you will never die. And when that comes into your thought pattern as a place of value, then you start to really look at who you are and what greatness you can achieve in your life when you are going to be you forever. Because think of how long forever just got if you're never going to die. How sure are you of what you just said? I'll say it again. After being dead more than 4 times, or struck by lightning and dead for 28 minutes, open heart surgery, brain surgery, open heart surgery. Those are near-death experiences except for the lightning strike. And then after open heart surgery, I had to be resuscitated 3 times. That's dead. No pulse, no respiration, no EKG. And after dying with thousands of people and studying death for now more than 45 years, unequivocally, without question, you will never die. And why? You are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. So the only thing that can ever possibly go wrong in your life is you let something affect your dignity, which skews your direction and your purpose. And that's where every one of you are who thinks you're going to die. So get over it.
We are a spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. Let's skip over the next picture of the Saved by the Light, and let's go to the next video, Doug, number 19, if we could. This is Marcia Sims and Bernard Haish. And Bernard Haish is a really interesting guy. He is doing free energy study, but he's a quantum physicist. He has Parkinson's, so his wife, Marcia, really does a lot of the kind of speaking for him now, but she had a near-death experience. And so this is a bit of what she talked about.
Because we do believe that we have more than one life, heaven is really, to me, and you can add to this, Bernie, heaven is a place where we go between lives to be with God, to renew ourselves, to be with our spirit guides, to review our lives in the hall of the Akashic records, see how we did.
Knock us up a bit.
Yeah, notches us up a bit. And then we determine what it is we want to do our next life. And we have a lot of consultations with angelic beings, spiritual guides. And we choose what it is that we're going to experience in our next new life. And we make these decisions, but even when we are born into the physical world, we still have free will to change the course of our lives if we want to, but we do make plans. So heaven is, I think it's a really beautiful place to be, and we get to share experiences with other angelic beings and other souls that are like us. But it's in the traditional Christian sense where God is a desert patriarch sitting on a throne with a staff, and he's sitting on a bank of clouds, and angels are floating around him playing harps. I mean, I think there are angelic voices, and there's a lot of music on the other side, but it's not the way that I was taught when I was in Sunday school. But then, with regards to hell, hell is claimed to be an everlasting realm of torment reserved for humans who have committed grievous offenses against God, often referred to as mortal sins.
She continued on there with a longer explanation, and I should have cut it a little bit earlier, but I love her explanation. And when she talked about her experience, she said that she was surfing and that the riptide took her way out, and that there were beings that came with her. She had great fear, and then all of a sudden she had great love and peace come around her. and then a surfer came and rescued her. So, I too have had a near-death experience. I had a horse riding accident when I was younger, and when I was in the surgery, I went into this space that was kind of like clouds. It felt like white light all around me, and I laid kind of in the lap, I believe, of who Jesus is, and I just felt the peace that surpasses all understanding, and I didn't feel like there was time there. I didn't feel like, Jesus was like, "Okay, time's up, Melanie. I gotta go, and I gotta go do this or that." I felt that I had all the time to just rest and be there in that moment. My daughter also had a vision of heaven, and the next part that we're going to look at, this little girl, she's a painter, and I think we're going to have one more come up right before this, and then after that, we'll put that one in. Go ahead.
And hell is here. They're both in the same location. And what is your job and mission on this earth, according to what I read in the Bible, from what I understand to be factual information? Your mission is to bring heaven to earth. Your mission is to create a divine outlook on what you think life is supposed to be and what it should look like, and how people should love one another, and how we should be all prosperous, and how we can utilize our knowledge and wisdom and combine that with our technology and everything else that we've learned, and love for animals and everything else, and then how we can then project that consciously from a multidimensional platform of thought into a three-dimensional reality. That's what this is all about. That's what heaven is.
I love Billy Carson, and I think that's probably the favorite thing I've ever heard him say. That that's what our purpose here is, to bring heaven to earth. Really, like to create something that's different, to love your neighbor as yourself, and love one another. I think that's what our mission here, and to create that new place, that new world, that new what we're doing in this movement. When we eradicate the evil, and whatever you call evil, and um, those obstacles that have been there for many centuries in our way, and we have that renaissance of humanity, it's going to be amazing. So this next one that we're going to pull up, her name is Akiana, and she was a little girl who started painting at 4 years old, and she said that she started getting visions of different dimensions and spiritual places, and that she started to paint. And at the end of it, we'll just come back in and I'll talk a little bit more about it. I love her work. And as I don't know if you could read it, but my daughter had a vision of heaven once, and she talked about a great many things. And afterwards, she would have little moments like she would see things. Like one time we were waiting for the bus to come in the morning, and she saw these beautiful skies, and she said, "Mama, that's what heaven looks like all the time, except you can see the stars as well." And so one time we were in church, and the pastor was talking about heaven, and he was putting different pictures up, and my daughter was saying, "That's not what heaven looks like. That's not what heaven looks like." And she was a very vivacious child. This happened to her when she was about 6 or 7. And when Akiana's picture came up, Nika had no idea about um, the story behind Akiana. And she jumped up and she exclaimed, "Mama, that's what heaven looks like." So I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Blessings. Till next week.